Hi everyone and welcome to our ThingLink webinar. I'm delighted to introduce my co-host this evening, Mr. Darren White. Hello, Mr. Darren White.
Well, hello, Louise. Very formal.
I was just trying to be prepared. Because we're usually so giggly and these things are so informal and chatty. I was just bringing some formality to the proceedings. How are you? How are you melting there?
Just realised I'm a little bit pink, actually, which is it's the joys of being ginger in this kind of weather, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Right, I'm just going to share my screen with everyone and we'll start the webinar. So first of all, thank you to you all for joining us. We had something like 700 sign-ups for our webinar today. And this is the second in our series where we're talking about AI essential skills, learning and teaching. And if I have a look at the chat, we've got people from Finland and London and Ottawa, Iowa. There's people from all over. So thank you again for joining us from so many places all over the world. And it's a pleasure to be back here actually in the UK because I've been away for the last few weeks and I got back last night from Berlin. And if we've got any of our German colleagues there, I had a fantastic time in Berlin. It was absolutely super. So I've just introduced Darren to you. Darren is the author of these two great books. One is It's Your Time You're Wasting, which came after this book, which is What's Their Why. Darren, I picked out a quote from one of the books, which is, we have a duty to look at different, innovative and brave new approaches and to question the status quo as much as we encourage our pupils to do. It's our responsibility to prepare our young pupils for their future and not our past. I think that is just such a summary of you as an educator as well.
I must admit, I looked at that when I first saw the slides. I thought, oh, that's quite deep. I wonder who said that. And then I realised it was me. Yeah.
And tell us what inspired you to write your two books.
What inspired me? Probably the fact that I have way too much stuff going on in my head. And after a period of sort of a few years where I really struggled from a mental health perspective, I kind of came to the decision that I needed to offload things because I couldn't possibly keep everything up there. So originally it started as a bit of a brain dump, really. My daughter worked at Nando's, although other chicken shops are available. And she used to finish work around about midnight and couldn't drive at the time. She can now, thankfully. But she couldn't drive at the time. So I used to have to go and pick her up and I'd be sat in the car park because she'd say she'd be finishing at 11:30 and at 12:20, I'd still be sitting there waiting, So I'd be just there with my phone, with Google Docs open, just kind of brain dumping everything that had gone through my head during the day, things that had annoyed me, but also things that had kind of got me thinking about creative solutions and all that kind of stuff, really. And it just kind of grew from there. And then I just thought, well, I've got all of this stuff. I need to kind of put it in some sort of semblance of order and make sense of it, really. So it was cathartic.
Cathartic, but they are also really practical books.
Oh.
Lots of hints and tips and tricks to help teachers with lesson ideas, as well as a little bit of thought leadership there about why waste your time and things that can help you.
They're also really useful because they're about the same size as a dinner mat. If you are trying to eat off your lunch in the staff room and things like that, they're quite useful from that point of view as a kind of a lap tray.
Oh, I think you're doing a disservice there. They are actually brilliant books. And we are, as we did in our previous webinar when we gave away a book, we're going to give away two books. So 2 lucky winners are going to receive a copy of one of these books. And if you scan the QR code, which is on the screen in front of you, you'll go into a prize draw, and at the end of the webinar we will be drawing 2 names. And Darren, you're going to some sort of random tool, are you going to ask ChatGPT for the numbers of our winners?
Oh, I could do, I suppose. I hadn't thought of that.
So
maybe, depends on whether that's an ethical thing to do or not, but maybe we'll get to that later.
So on the form, what we've put is that you can sign up to be a winner of one of these 2 books, and you don't need to put your name. You can put an anonymous, sort of made up name if you want to, but we have to have your email, of course, so that we can email you to make sure that we get the books to you. But if you don't have to sign up with a real name in case your name's called out on the screen, and you might be a bit shy about that. But Kyla, welcome to our webinar. You are a resident Q&A person, and you're also going to be in charge of the draw.
Yes, as I was last time. Yeah, I'm going to be answering questions as fast as I can, everyone. So the ThingLink is me in the corner there answering your questions, and I'll be helping to do the prize draw at the end to get the lucky winners of the 2 books.
And Kyla, not only are you our webinar co-pilot, but you also do a lot of case studies for us, and people will see your name on the blog and other places as well. So have you got any interesting case studies that are coming out, maybe?
Well, tomorrow morning, we are going to be publishing the case study that we covered in our last webinar, which hopefully people saw, which was Camilla's incredible work that was involving so many different AI tools. So that's going to be such an exciting case study to cover. So look out for that when it gets published tomorrow.
Brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much, Kyla. And yes, if you've got any questions at all, do please put them in the chat, and Kyla will be posting all the links, and any other questions that you want answered to, please go ahead and post in the chat. And I'll just remove you now, Kyla, from the screen, but we'll see you again in a short while. So thank you. Amazing. So I just think it's always a good opportunity for us to talk a little bit about what ThingLink is, because not everybody who's on the webinar might not know. This might be the first time you're seeing ThingLink in action. We've got a really good series of webinars, and if you've missed some of the ones already, you can go back and sign up for them and watch the action replay, as we're lovingly calling them. So ThingLink, if you haven't used it so far, where have you been? It's a much loved tool by not only educators, but many kind of different instructional designers use ThingLink in the kind of corporate learning development world. We're used by museums and galleries, but much loved in education from pre-K to 12, early years, primary, secondary, higher education, and beyond. We've got creators, 10 million or so creators now across the globe that are using ThingLink, and it's a way for you to easily make your images, your videos, your 360 media or 3D models completely interactive with clickable hotspots. Now, some of you might not have seen this before, and I wanted to put this on the screen because ThingLink truly is a pioneer of both augmented reality, where we're looking at objects in real life, maybe through a digital lens or a headset or on another type of screen, but also immersive learning, interactive learning experiences, which we call together collectively as mixed reality. And on the screen in front of you, you'll see, this is Ula back in 2005, putting stickers and testing out the theory that everything could have a unique link, in which if you went to somewhere for that link, then you could add different types of information and media. And don't worry, you'll get a copy of these slides. I'll make sure that they go out in the email afterwards. And if you click on the images in this slide, it will take you to Ula's founding story of how ThingLink came to life. And I think it's always a really nice reminder for us. And I've been with ThingLink about 4 years now, but just how much it's grown in the 11, 12 years that ThingLink's been around. And we still are pioneering in the world of augmented reality and mixed reality. I don't know if you've seen that picture before, Darren.
I haven't, no.
It's really cool. And yeah, there's the whole story on a Medium article. Yeah, very interesting, all happening in 2005 when it was coming to life. And since then, of course, ThingLink has grown over the years, and our ThingLink editor, which is where you can add those interactive hotspots to all those different types of base media. And then you can mix and match them together to create tours, to create interactive images, interactive maps, gaming-based learning activities, all of these types of uses by mixing and matching everything together. But since then, of course, we've added some additional products. So we're encouraging people to think of ThingLink as like this kind of suite of tools now. And the ThingLink editor, of course, is the OG. It's the original and still the best, and that just keeps improving. But we now have a scenario builder where you can put your interactive assets into branching scenario-based learning experiences. And yes, you can download the design and you can share the links. I'm really happy for you to share any of the slides and these designs as well. We've also got our AR app, and I'm going to be giving you some more information, even more sneaky peek information about our AR app. And also Darren's going to show us how he's been using guided tours and these kinds of concepts to encourage young people to develop skills which are going to be relevant now and for the future, and for educators to develop important skills as well. So the next thing that I just wanted to kind of pivot into is that obviously we have been talking about AI, and Microsoft. Is a really interesting article that Satya Nadella's posted, which is all about AI being the defining technology of our time. And I think it's quite interesting to kind of see this unfold in real time as we're watching a huge, tremendous pace of change. Darren, you've almost been at the forefront of a lot of these changes, particularly this year. So what was your thoughts? Where were you when it all came to life?
Where was I? Well, it was November. I was busy working away and just kind of exploring a few things, really. Just little kind of trickles that were coming through that I was starting to play around with. And then when ChatGPT and you know, the OpenAI explosion happened, even for someone like myself, it was overwhelming. There's just so much out there, and we had a conversation a few days ago, didn't we, about, you know, pretty much now if you put AI into any title, then people are going to look at it. You know, you could literally create anything, and if it mentions AI, you're going to get hits, whether that's social media, whether it's downloads, whether it's, you know, something that's available as a blog or whatever it might be, because it's so huge. It's going to get picked up regardless of the nature or actually the quality of the product as well. And I think that's something that we've got to be very mindful of, in that it's very easy to create effectively an AI startup in no time at all. Yeah. And if you publicize that well and you market it well, you can really get people on board very, very quickly. But equally, we've got to be mindful of the security and the privacy and the ethics behind all of that as educators, both for ourselves and also for our young people as well. So there's undoubtedly huge benefits, and we're already seeing some fantastic examples of, you know, AI being used to interpret things like MRI scans and pick up on things and potential signs of degeneration and disease and things like that at very, very early stages, which is phenomenal. But at the same time, you know, we're very aware that there is that opportunity, if you like, for bias to creep in if we're not using our own skills and our own levels of deduction and our own common sense at the same time. I say common sense because it's not always common. But you know, so I think, you know, it's a very exciting time. I saw somebody on Twitter, and I forget who it was, so apologies in advance, but they shared a kind of a word cloud of people's feelings around AI. And undoubtedly the biggest word coming out of that was excitement, but there was also a lot of doubt and a lot of intrepidation, a lot of cautiousness as well. So I think, you know, my personal approach is, you know, be bold but be responsible, and step forward cautiously. A little bit like, it kind of reminds me, do you remember the TV show Nightmare?
Yes.
That was very much kind of alternate reality. They had the helmet on and they would guide them round. And I always used to remember watching people doing that, thinking that they walked really, really kind of carefully, and they weren't very steady on their feet. And I was always thinking, surely you can just look out the bottom of the helmet. But of course, at that point, I wasn't aware of all of the aspects of that kind of thing, and wasn't realizing that actually they weren't seeing what we were seeing, because that room didn't really exist. So as a kid, I was kind of like, what's wrong with them? Sort it out. Now I kind of get it.
I think what worries me from what I've seen is that there's obviously a number of AI tools that are springing up, and I think people can get into a pitfall of kind of using technology for technology's sake and not really thinking about actually what does that mean for the young people, what's the learning experiences that you want them to have of their technology, and people kind of jump on the bandwagon, so to speak. So in some of the forums that I've seen, particularly for AI educators, there's a lot of excitement about things that you can do with AI, but there's also a lot of teachers who are saying, I don't want to teach with AI tools. I want to teach in a way that is still going to be really valid in the era of AI. And I think I see more questions like that than, I want to use this latest kind of frill and fluff and, kind of, and I think that's what I'd like to kind of more focus on, is how can we still be promoting authenticity and also really impactful learning experiences, not just because they've got AI in them.
100%, I was a teacher for 24 years, and if somebody had given me a PowerPoint or a lesson pack and said, deliver this lesson, there's absolutely no way that I would have stuck to their plan, because 100% want to make it my. And teachers, we all know better ways of doing things, right? Whatever you ask us to do, we'll find a better way of doing it from our perspective. It may not actually be better, but we certainly feel like it is. So the ability to just be able to go and ask for, a whole lesson and a presentation with everything, all the bells and whistles and the belt and braces and everything else, and then just delivering that, I think would be really stale and cold from my own perspective. I wouldn't want to do it that way. But certainly, the automation of the mundane, those bits that get in the way of that fun aspect of teaching, and the bits that get in the way of the human element and the contact with individual pupils, I think, there's a real space for that to make a massive change in education.
Yeah, I think you've probably got teachers all over the country and all over the world watching you there, just kind of clapping away at what you're saying. So I thought it'd be quite good just to have a bit of a kind of starter question. I hope you're all awake watching. What do you think are the most important skills for teachers and young people in the era of AI? And I think what we're trying to do is to get away from thinking about just a list of skills, but what are those important attributes? Hi from Mexico, Jocelyn. Sorry, go on.
No, I'm always happy to see people from Mexico joining, because I used to live in Jalapa. So.
Oh, amazing. Fantastic. So, and the title of this webinar was about skills for the future and thriving with skills. So, Darren, do you want to start off with some of your thoughts? I mean, you've started to touch on some things there.
Yeah. I mean, what skills do teachers need? I think we talk a lot when we're talking about young people, about, stickability. And we want, particularly using the Teacher Toolkit 5-minute lesson plan and all that kind of thing. You've got that stickability element in there. That's your focus. What's going to be the thing that they take away and they don't forget? I think for me, one of the skills that teachers we need, and we need to demonstrate ourselves and develop in young people as well, is clickability. And that's something that I've developed. And I mentioned it in my book. Actually, I was one of the first people in my school to get an interactive whiteboard, and basically it got put into my room. Somebody gave me a laptop which had a DVD thing, CD-ROM loaded into it, and said, there you go. And there was no training, there was nothing, and basically I just had to sit there with this really expensive pen and just start pressing the board and see what happens. And as much as that was a real pain, it taught me an awful lot about taking risks, not being afraid to break things. And so I think that clickability, I think, is really important, because you're not on your own. If it does go wrong, so what? So does life. You know, it's not a big deal. Students need to see us making mistakes, because otherwise, you know, they're always aiming for something that feels unattainable for them. They need to experience that for themselves. But also it's a difficult one as well, because you've got to be in the right kind of situation, and your environment needs to allow you that psychological safety to be able to take those risks and to know that it's okay.
Yeah, and I think that we're just seeing some lovely comments come through in the chat, which is, you know, from Marriott to empowering students to make informed decisions and staying safe in the digital age. And then Amanda's saying about an adventurous new spirit to try things and reflect on the why, what, how, which is kind of what you cover in your book. You know, what's their why? What's the why for using AI? Yeah, some other great comments that are just coming through as well. I think the other discussions that we started to have was, you know, we kind of see these lists of skills for the future, and I always think they are almost encouraging the thinking that these are additional skills on top, but of course they're not additional skills on top, are they? I mean, you can't just have a lesson on critical thinking. It's not like a separate skill. These kinds of skills are just woven throughout, a bit like kind of layers of gold and bedrock. Or I think the quote was about kind of fat and marbled meat or something like that, wasn't it?
Yep. You know, it's all there, and sometimes you can see it and sometimes you can't, and sometimes you want that fat and sometimes you don't, and it is about picking and choosing the right tools for the right jobs, the right tools for the right jobs at the right time as well. Sometimes you can have the right tool for the right job, but you just don't have the capacity yourself to be able to do it, or the students don't, or it's not an appropriate time to be using that tool, because it should be, as we said earlier on, you know, about enhancing the learning experience, not replacing it, not substituting it, not, you know, just doing things because they're there and getting distracted because something shiny's come along. But actually, you know, what is the reason? What are we trying to achieve? I do the same when I'm working with staff. Quite often I'll get people say to me, I need you to show me how to do this. I want to make this process work. And quite often my question is, why do you want to do that? Because the process that they want to understand might have been a really good process to use 2 years ago when it was set up. But actually now there might be better processes and better opportunities in place, and actually unpicking all of that and going back to the root kind of cause of what is it you want to achieve, quite often gives you a much better result.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. And Kenji, he's in Scotland, just made the point about meta skills, which is quite a buzzword, or soft skills, but it is those kind of essential skills that employers are looking for. And I don't think those skills are going to change. But the point is that we're learning that these skills don't exist as kind of bolt-on things, and we've got to kind of weave those in. And Stella's talked about collaborative new paths in direction, but multi-literacies. We've talked about digital literacy. Actually, it's just literacies, isn't it, really? You know, and media literacies, it is all literacies. And that the same kind of way that we've now understood that texts can be different types of media. You know, so I do think that learning to handle different types of media, having confidence in different types of media is going to be really important going forward. And that ability to question the intent behind any content that you read. Who designed that content for me? Why am I seeing that content? You know, if we crack some of those skills, then, as I've said before, maybe that'll be us in a good path to think about wider important skills to stay safe as well. We'll keep that chat going. Keep putting your questions in. One thing I did really like, and I'd love to show this to you, and for those of you that were on the webinar last time, 2 weeks ago, we had a wonderful student from the Basingstoke College of Technology, and she showed how she had used Skybox Labs, and we'll put all the links in the chat for you, a way of using a prompt to create a 360 image, which you can download and then use in ThingLink. And Dan was so inspired by Camilla's example. Dan, who was the co-host with me, he came up with this resource. Now, I'm sure that many of you know and love To Kill a Mockingbird. It's Harper Lee, wasn't it? Has also been a bit controversial in terms as well. I think Harper Lee made some statements not that long ago. But what I liked about this was it brought that text to life. So he actually used Skybox Labs to create an authentic property from Alabama. And then he used, and this is using an AI image generation tool to create these characters. And you don't actually see the characters in the book because it's all text, of course. But he's talking about Jem Finch. And then he's also, and you should be able to hear the audio.
Well, howdy there. I'm Jan Louise, but folks around here just call me Scout. I reckon you're here to pay us a visit at the old Finch residence.
So he used ChatGPT to create a text in the style of Scout, and then using the image generation tools he's got, used another tool, which is DID, which I'll send you all the links for, to bring that character to life. And then what he's also done is if you click on the tour tag, it takes you to the inside of what the courtroom looks like based on the text from the book. And here he's actually created other characters. You've got Atticus Finch, but then you've also got the...
I'm a simple man, always done my best to live right, help others when I can.
So the point of this is that he's brought that kind of text into a memorable moment. It's like a powerful moment when you can actually get to grips with the book because you can visually seeing it. And this is Dan's impression, and he says that he had no skills, zero skills in order to make it. What he did have was what some of the comments were saying was that inquisitiveness to explore things, to think about how it could be used to create powerful moments of insight. Now, another teacher who lives near a courtroom might have actually hired a courtroom and taken the students to the courtroom to actually read it in situ and put costumes on. That's just one way. This is another way of doing it. But I'm always really mindful of what could you do if you gave students these tools and then they came up with their own versions of the text. I think that's super impressive. I love the comments that are coming through. Yeah, really, really impressive. So that link, Dan's actually written a lesson plan on how you can do that, but I've put that into the deck so that all the links are there for you to have a look if you just click on how he's done that. Darren, do you want to talk about you kind of built on that thinking with Skybox Labs, and that was your own kind of medical center example?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it came off the back of, watching. I was unfortunately had to watch the action replay of that previous webinar, but come off the back of that and conversations with yourself as well, Louise, and conversations with colleagues as well. So I used the Skybox Labs as well to create the medical center example we've got here. This was just done really because I wanted a way to show head teachers that there were alternative ways to do a 360 virtual tour of your school. One of the reasons for that was cost, because it's very expensive to do. Another reason was actually just accessibility, because this is something you can do yourself. You don't have to, pay for a whole raft of people to turn up and create things for you. But also because it's very, very accessible. And this one was created with Skylabs, and this was really just done as a mock-up. So I wanted it, basically my prompt was, I wanted a modern looking, very clean, aesthetically pleasing, modern medical clinic, if you like. And I asked it for a reception area and then a couple of other spaces as well. So when you explore around, you've obviously got the focal points in there, which I really like. I love that development, that you don't have the hotspot there, which slightly obscures. You've got the focal point instead. And then when you click on the tour, it basically explains to you, look, this is where you're going to come in. Yes, it's small, but that's because you're not going to be sitting around for a long time. Actually, we're going to get you in and we're going to get you kind of welcomed really quickly. So you get that opportunity to kind of share that, and then it goes through into, this is what one of our medical operating theatres look like. It picks out a few things about, look, just look how tidy it is. This is obviously for points of hygiene, but also make sure you're suitably scrubbed. So it's done in a friendly fashion. And then it just takes you through after that into like the recovery room, puts you at ease in terms of, look, this is where you're going to be. Light's important, not just for you, but for our patients and our staff as well, because, you know, that's a big part of it. And then kind of like, this is where you'll go through to the recovery. You'll be looked after. You won't just be plonked in a room on your own. There'll be somebody with you to monitor you and all that kind of thing. So that's the kind of thing I put together for head teachers, really with a view to, actually, wouldn't it be great if you could do this kind of thing with your school websites in terms of giving 360 tours? Because obviously, unfortunately, in this day and age, we have to be really careful about sharing too much about the internal buildings and the internal constructs of our schools, because we do have situations where we don't want people having a complete floor plan. We don't want people being able to work out exactly what route could I take to get from here to here, and how long would it take me, for obvious safety reasons. So the ability to be able to do something like this means that you can pick and choose. Here's a typical classroom. Here's some of our grounds. Here's our school canteen. Let's let you look at that bit. Let's give you the information that we want to give you in a way where you feel like you've had a walk round, but actually we've not compromised anything. And I expected that to be a conversation that would happen over the next sort of 3 or 4 months. And then, unfortunately, because of situations here in the UK with school construction, we're actually in a situation now where this week I'm building a real life version, because we've got a school that has got rack concrete, and they've had to basically relocate in an emergency. So they've had to split their school to 2 separate sites that are also part of our trust and still local. So some of the students are going to another primary school for the remainder of the term. Some of the students are going to a secondary school for the remainder of the term. And you can imagine, you know, for parents, that can be quite daunting, because you've got your year 3 or your year 2 student who potentially might be going to a site with sixth form students and everything that comes with that. So that level of apprehension and worry, they've only got a week between, we got informed last week, they're on site next week. So I went in on Monday and I took some 360 images just using my Pixel phone. So we've mocked up a kind of a starting point so I could explain to the staff involved what kind of things we could include, and the kind of feel that it might have. And then I'm going back on Friday to take the final images once all of the furniture's in place and everything else, so that I can then update that and we can share it with parents and share it with students, not only for those that are joining us at this new unfamiliar site to them on Monday, but also for those who are potentially joining the school in September, who will be understandably a little bit anxious and wanting to see that there's some semblance of normality going on, and that there are, you know, still things are happening as normal. So, you know, that was something I never expected would be something that I'll be doing this week. And actually it's been a lifesaver. It really has.
So you think that having the kind of the guided tours is going to give you a bit more comfort that they're going around in a really kind of organized way, which is sequential with those particular points that you want them to see, rather than that kind of free form virtual tour, and certainly not like the kind of flyby you get with, say, like a tool that's for selling houses where you see the floor plan and warts and all. So you're encouraging people not to go down that route and to look at specific areas which are going to be important.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it's going to be really helpful, like I say, for schools moving forward, for parents, you know, for prospective staff, because, you know, you can all go on a tour personally. You know, you can go to an open evening, but on a busy open evening, do you get the opportunity to see everything you want to see? Not always. Do you get the opportunity to ask everything you want to ask? Do you get the opportunity to go back and have another look? Possibly not. So I think this has got real potential to really open up those kind of environments to people, and actual from a teaching perspective as well. So, I used to teach many things, but one of the things I used to teach was retail business, and students needed to understand the psychology of sales promotions and things like that. So I created ThingLinks for them. It wasn't a 360 guided tour at the time, but it was as near as damn it with the transitions and everything else. So that actually I could get them to stop at various points in the aisle and say, right, what do you see here? Why is this being positioned at this point on the shelf? Why is the expensive stuff at eye level? Why is the cheaper stuff not? Why is everything color coded in this particular way? What are the reasons behind that? And to get them to then really go away and research that to find the answers for themselves.
Do you think it's funny that we teach that in retail skills, but isn't that just something you should learn as life skills, so that you actually question, why things are placed for you in that way? I'm sure that if I'd clocked that, I would have saved a few pounds on some things in the supermarket myself.
I did get a couple of messages from parents after we'd done it as a virtual experience, just to say thank you, because actually the students had then gone round shopping with their parents and started to pick out where they were getting ripped off, because it had a yellow and a red sticker on it. People thought it was a deal, but actually they've started to look in more detail now as what's the price per 100 grams for each individual item. So they've started to interrogate that information and use that.
There's been a bit of a merging then of the kind of techniques that were used for sort of corporate learning and development, and that how there's been a bit of a shift now in terms of instructional design and how instructional designers are learning more about effective pedagogy, but educators are learning more from the kind of those kind of real world experiences and how important they are to have those in schools.
Oh, definitely. And when you look at some of the things that are being used in sort of like medical industry, this is just a mocked up example, but we've shared before, haven't we, the kind of the paramedic training of, okay, you've walked into this flat, there's a person that's unconscious, what's the reason behind it? Find out, and I think I don't know, maybe it's a link as well to the rise in popularity of things like escape rooms, in terms of I love an escape room. I often go on an escape room and go with my friends Jim and Dean, and we just chuck ourselves in there, and there's that element of immersion in that. And I think that kind of learning experience young people have really bought into, because it's something they can do together. It's something that's time limited, but it's fun at the same time. It's pressured, but it's not pressured. Like, you're not really going to get locked in, but it's good fun to have somebody in handcuffs or have a ghost jumping out the wall at you, whatever it might be. And I think a lot of that is finding its way into education, and for all the right reasons.
I was in the airport last night coming back from Berlin via Schiphol, and there was a number of workers who were sat on a table next to me, and they had a real life situation where they all got locked into a studio in a large building and everyone had gone home. So the only way that they thought they could engineer some sort of rescue was that one of them started smoking cigarettes, so he set off the fire alarm so that they had to be rescued from the building. I thought that was quite funny and not something you usually cover when you're doing health and safety training. I just want to pick up on a point that Kenji's just mentioned. So Kenji was asking about software solutions for taking 360-degree photographs. When we talk about 360-degree images, as you probably are aware, Kenji, it's about photospheres rather than panoramic images. So at the moment, the only way for you to take photospheres, as in the whole entirety where you can look up, look down, would be something like a 360 camera. Now that Google Street View has been discontinued by Google, the Google Pixel phone does have it built in as a photosphere option. iPhones don't. But I'm not going to say too much more because I'll get in trouble, but I would watch this space. That's, yes. Watch this ThingLink space. You never know what might come up. I'm just going to go back to my deck now because I know that we could just talk all day. On Darren's example that you saw there of the medical centre, it did have narrated audio in there as well. So all of that text that was on the screen you saw would play as audio, and there's also translation options available. Now, another thing that we've talked about before around skills is around authenticity and visual CVs and resumes. And I just love these. This is something that I was kind of involved in a few years ago in my prior Google days, where young people were, for assessment purposes, creating almost like a visual media portfolio of the things that they loved, the things that they felt they'd achieved, whether that was in school, out of school, the whole kind of range of achievements. And I personally still think that these are going to be really valid skills for the future in handling multimedia literacy, because we know that universities might get a text CV, they might think it's spun up on ChatGPT. Yes, you could create a video of you talking. You could create a video of you talking in a different type of language. However, to actually show your authenticity, an AI bot is never going to be able to talk about you personally, what your strengths are, what your passions are, what you want to achieve, where you go, what your experiences are going to be. And we think that visual CVs, where you can have all those clickable links to videos or social media channels or whatever you want to, are still going to be really valid. And I think that this is a really nice activity for teachers to use, not only to introduce new students or introduce teachers to a class or a cohort, but just a nice assessment tool as students are creating more multimedia type resources.
I couldn't agree more. My wife, actually, Claire, her CV is a interactive ThingLink, and she applied for a new job, which she's now been at for 14 months.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she works with adults with learning difficulties, and her CV was the thing that made the difference. That's what got her the job, and that was the thing that really stood out at interview. So it's not always about, your CV needs to be amazing and fantastic if you're going to, for example, a job in graphic design or whatever. Actually, it is about representing yourself and that authenticity, and that's what came across with her CV, and that's why she got the job, and it's the best job she's ever had.
That's brilliant. Well, you can say congratulations from us to Mrs. White. I think the other skill that we've talked about in the past in webinars is obviously the ability kind of to reinvent yourself as you get older. I'm not quite sure how you would label that as a skill, but that kind of ingenuity to be able to think, well, how can I pivot into this industry? How can I keep learning and change direction, or reinvent yourself if you need to, as things change, as we all had to do during lockdown. Many people had to think on their feet very, very quickly. Apologies there, I clicked on my screen and it moved on the slide very quickly. So I know that we're going to end up running out of time.
Hello, we're today at the Helsinki City Museum, which is, by the way, the most popular museum in Helsinki. We're here to try ThingLink's new AR app and show you how it works. Earlier today, we were here to take photos of some of the work, and we also measured their approximate dimensions. Next, on ThingLink, we added a couple of hotspots on select pieces at the exhibition. Now we're going to see how it works. So we at ThingLink built easy-to-use tools for creating interactive learning experiences in both digital and physical environments. If you want to try out our new AR app, make sure to sign up at thinglink.com.
I love that. I'm so excited about it. How cool is that? So if you haven't seen it yet, you've seen it now. It's the new ThingLink AR app, which is due to come out very soon in the iOS store. So it's for iPhones and iPads. initially, but obviously it's just going to get better and better. So Darren, I mean, that is another great kind of tool for people to combine, you know, kind of real life experiences. And yes, you could have QR codes on things that link to a ThingLink, but to do that in situ in a real life environment, I think that goes back to Ula's original vision almost, you know, with her sewing a kind of QR code type barcode numbers on things. So I bet your mind's already kind of.
Yeah, like it's taking me back to when I was younger and I was in the Scouts and we used to go and set up treasure hunts. And I'm thinking, wow, how cool would that be with the app? But then I'm also sitting there thinking, how much did I need something like that at Bet to just be able to walk around and know where everything was, and was I going in the right direction, and what was on next at various different points and all those kind of things. So although that's a museum example, so many real life applications.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about accessibility and being able to take what you would use your phone for, you know, that kind of Magic Eye type app, and then really be able to, at that moment in time, you know, whether you're at a point of sale and you're new in a job, or whether you're using, you know, and this will work for 3D objects as well. So you'll be able to take a 3D scan of an object, and then you'll be able to annotate it and then hold your device over that object in any ways. And Amanda's just come out with a nice comment there as well. And yeah, creating galleries and all sorts of things like that. Yeah, the artist and the story behind the art. Yeah, I mean, museums and galleries is a really great one, but I guess it's not about detracting from that physical experience, but enhancing that, or augmenting, which is essentially what augmented reality is. But yes, that's coming soon to ThingLink. And Amanda, whilst you're there, we want to bring you onto the screen because Amanda, congratulations from us all at ThingLink.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am completely shocked, and it was entirely unexpected, and I was very overwhelmed. So it was last Wednesday, and I was fine right up until they announced the actual award, and then I got very nervous, and then they put up, there was 3 finalists, and then they very quickly announced the winner, and I burst into tears. And yeah, I was just very overwhelmed and very humbled. So yeah, I just feel really passionate. You know, I feel really passionate about digital technologies and how, what a difference it can make to our learners. And you know, and yeah, I'm not an island. I keep telling everybody this. I'm not an island. You know, I'm connected to so many amazing people around the world, and you know, I don't just do all of this on my own in my little room. You know, I'm inspired continuously every day by the communities people I'm connected to. So I'm very, very grateful to be able to do what I do. So yeah, thank you very much.
I can remember one of the first ever webinars that we did. Well, myself at ThingLink, there were obviously webinars prior to me joining the company, but you know, that was coming up for like three and a half years ago, where we first started introducing, you know, the concept of the talking pets, and it was just such a much love approach that I think he made a regular appearance at nearly all of our webinars, certainly on all of my demos and training events to schools. So,
and you know, I actually bumped into a parent, was that yesterday? No, it was Monday. And she said, "Oh, I remember your ThingLinks from lockdown." And it was one of her little boys that I was sending out to, and they still remember it so vividly, and what an impact it had during lockdown when everybody was at home. So yeah.
Amazing. And so, you know, how do you see things changing at the moment with the introduction of AI and skills, particularly for teachers, educators, and the young people that you're working with?
I mean, I'm personally really excited about it. I know, you know, when I sit and I have my sensible head on and I'm thinking about the impact and the potential pitfalls and falling into that, it's a nice new shiny thing. But I've already, you know, seen so many people use AI creatively, and I just think it's one of these things that we can harness and very powerfully help to support and challenge and inspire our learners. So I'm excited about the future. You know, AI has been around. We know that it's been around for years and years. So it's not anything new. So it's just this explosion in November has, you know, basically put further excitement into what's happening in the world today. But I just think, I'm hoping what will happen is that the focus will be about more on creativity rather than that consumption of technology. You know, I go into lots of different schools and I work with lots of pupils and teachers, and I'm constantly trying to encourage them to be more creative. And I love it when, you know, I'm teaching something, maybe it was in coding or something, and instantly they've gone off plan and they're doing something creating. I love that. So I'm hoping that this is the future for that, to inspire learners to be more creative. That's where I'd like it to go.
Well, we'd love you to come back and show us even more of the way that you continue to develop your practice.
I'm so excited. I have lots of ideas, lots, and constantly I'm having wee ponders and writing things down on paper, interestingly.
So if people want to catch up with you, you are at JOB Pickard on Twitter, and certainly join the community or reach out to Amanda on our Facebook community, as well as you can reach out to Darren and of course everyone that's been involved in our webinars. So we've got about 9 minutes left of our webinar. So I'm going to bring Kyla on the screen because Kyla's been monitoring all of the entries to our book giveaway, and Darren's going to help us to choose some winners. So Kyla, I'm going to bring you onto the screen. So how many people are entered into our prize giveaway today? I think you're on mute. Sorry. Can you unmute yourself?
40 people have entered, Louise.
Excellent.
So we need numbers between 2 and 41, given that we've put them on a Google Sheet.
Listed it out. Darren, how are you going to do this?
Well, I am going to do it on my Google Pixel. Other phones are available, but I've got a random number generator, so it's here ready to go. Here we go.
Okay. Right. So first random number. Which book do you want to give away first?
Oh, what's their why?
What's their why? So this is for this book, and if you're out of this country, I will send you an Amazon voucher so you can order it in your country. So say delete. And what number is it? Number 39.
Yep.
Number 39 is Sarah D.
Yay! Congratulations, Sarah. This book will be in touch with you. Either I send it to you in the UK or I'll send you an Amazon voucher if you're outside the UK. And number 2, our second lucky winner for a copy of It's Your Time You're Wasting by Darren.
And I should point out that you're not wasting your time by reading it.
No, it's essential reading.
Number 15.
Number 15.
17 was that? 17. That's Meredith.
Yay!
Meredith.
Excellent.
Awesome.
We will send those up to you. We'll follow up after the webinar. I just wondered though, is there any other questions, any other comments you want to ask us while we've got the whole panel here, or any thoughts from any of our wonderful people that have joined us this evening? Amanda?
Oh, sorry. I was just reading through the comments there. Sorry. Distracted, of course. No, I'm just looking at where everybody's from and what everybody's been saying. So
Lots of love for you, Amanda, on your award.
I know. Thank you so much. I am totally overwhelmed by everything about it. So yeah, no, I have no other questions. I'm just excited to get going. I've already taken some extra notes tonight about things I'm going to try. I love that whole thing about To Kill a Mockingbird, and now, yeah, I've been working with Novel Effect this year, and we're going to be putting together some things for some books in Novel Effect over the summer holidays. And I was like, oh, I could use ThingLink for this. But now I'm thinking further than that, I can use AI and ThingLink and various other things. So yeah, I'm just inspired, as always, away for a wee ponder.
Excellent. So we do have another webinar that's coming up. I'm just going to make sure you can all see that. It's on the 28th of June, and Kyla and myself are going to be looking at how you can unlock new experiences in museums and galleries through mixed reality. And of course, that's not just for museum educators or instructional designers. It's for anyone that's looking to, you might be a historian, you might want to just look at new ways of presenting information. And we are going to be joined by no other than
Ooh.
Carly, who's going to be joining us. Carly is from the Stir Museum, who created the most incredible scenario-based learning activities, all about a school children's blizzard. It's on one of our case studies. And Carly's going to be joining us to show us exactly how she created that scenario-based learning experience. There's a case study about it already, and the link to that is going to be on the deck, and we'll put it on the email that gets sent out as well. But literally, you can decide what you would do as a teacher if there was a blizzard and suddenly your classroom was completely covered and there was no way out. That's exactly what happened in this scenario, which is a real scenario. And you can take a number of decisions as that teacher about what you'd be doing if you saw all that snow coming in. It's phenomenal. So we're really glad that Carly can join us on that example as well. So as always, I should mention that we do always have offers for schools. We try and do something every year, particularly for schools. And in 23-24, we're going to be building on our school bundle offer, which includes the scenario builder, the presentation mode, the guided tours that you saw Darren creating, and of course, that forthcoming AR app. And we would love to hear from you and your school if you want to come and try some of these things out. Sign up at thinglink.com and don't hesitate to get in touch with us. So I think it's just left, and I'll pop Kyla back on the screen now. Do get in touch with us, and we'd love to hear from you, myself or Kyla. If you want to catch up with either Darren or Amanda, then say hello in our communities as well. Any last thoughts from anyone before we bring it to a close? Darren, thank you so much for bringing your books for us to give away as well.
You're very welcome. Thanks for giving them away.
I'll also put some links in the email as well. So if anybody wants to buy a copy of either of Darren's books, I can highly recommend them. It's certainly one that is just really easy to pick up and put down and sit on a plane and read, which was great. So I think that's all from us, except to say, have a lovely evening. We hope you keep cool wherever you are, if you're in the midst of a heat wave, if you're in Europe or the UK particularly, where we seem to be having a bit of a heat wave at the moment, but wherever you are. And we hope you've enjoyed this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars as well. So I guess that's goodbye from me.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him. Thank you, Uli from Austria. Thanks, Kenji. Always a pleasure to have you on a webinar and to hear your thoughts as well. And yeah, do sign up for the next one that's coming up as well. So thanks ever so much, everyone, and take care.